bigger part of this. I'm not in much in agreement with having it at 0 either. But I don't know how you enforce it, because the application could tell you what you want to hear.
Recognized the purpose that it was in. They didn't disagree with that. They said it's not practical, it's unenforceable.
That's the part.
And that was their analysis of it.
To which I would agree to a degree. I think it does warrant some more discussion. Maybe it needs to be a work session of itself. I have one quick question, though, and if I missed it, I apologize. How did you come to the number 6 versus 12?
Generally speaking, that it was halfway between
0 and 12.
Okay.
I like that. That works.
12 that we had trouble with.
So I guess our history of what we've had develop in the industrial park, what is our average currently when we take the businesses that are there now, Dragonberry, Pioneer Pump, what are we averaging in terms of employees per acre right now?
I don't know that I can tell you what that is, but what I can tell you is those that have been inquiring for the past 6 years or so always had some hesitancy the minute the economic development director would say, oh, and by the way, we have this requirement, and you can see their eyes glaze over. And if you had something that was more like 6, I don't think we would have that happening, and we could feel more confident that most of the inquiries are going to meet it.
Well, I think I'd like a little more
But that's-
educated formula than somewhere halfway between 0 and 12.
Yeah, I think Councilor Hensley is absolutely right. This warrants further discussion, because certainly from an aspirational standpoint, I mean, after what we did to the transit director, and then going around saying, well, okay, if nothing else, it's aspirational. It says we want our industrial land to be high value. And whether we can enforce it or not, that becomes another question. But I think there's value just having a discussion with someone who comes in and wants to do business and says, how many jobs are you going to produce? Instead of just having it be silent. But let's move it along if I can. If you want to survey to see if there's consensus, just to leave it as status quo as 12 and proceed with the rest of the changes, Mr. Mayor.
I'm fine with moving on. We'll make that a note to come back and leave as is as we get to the point. And I would know Amanda is not here, but Brian, I'll put it upon maybe perhaps you, Renata, and Joe and Amanda, put your heads together and figure out what, if any, would be a suitable number, or if it's not a number, is there certain criteria that we can create that would allow for the development to happen without maybe such stringent employment numbers, so that when we do convene perhaps a work session or a conversation in the future, we can have some of that as speaking points and food for thought. Does that sound fair?
Yes.
Okay.
Excellent, thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Angie, go ahead.
Okay. By the same token, we had originally proposed a number 8, saying that a freestanding warehouse required a conditional use permit, and then we subsequently realized that that's a freestanding warehouse is an outright, as the code reads now, is an outright permitted use. So that was part of, that's the explanation for comment D2. And then also in number 6, we just kept it, staff's proposing to keep the amount of retail area to a more, I guess, clear 15% of building footprint can be retail, and just get rid of the or more than 3,000 square feet. Again, I don't think there was a scientific reason for doing this. It's just simpler to understand. 15%. Because some, for example, Dragonberry, and I don't know if there's any other examples from the top of your head, but have a small retail area where they showcase their products, so.
And I think that's appropriate.
Moving on to page 215. G is language cleanups. J, those are changes related to adding a type 2 process. Page 216, again, M was something triggered by Dragonberry. That just accommodates those that want to use drought-tolerant plants instead of requiring that all landscape areas be irrigated. They actually had the Dragonberry did a variance for that to not have, am I correct here, Brian? So that's basically a reaction to that.
Yeah, we had some they had some plant issues that didn't,
Right.
yeah, okay.
Yeah, and the language there says if they die, they have to replace them, so I mean,
Yeah.
you get it either way.
Below that is a grammatical correction. Page 217 looks like a lot of changes, but it's really a lot of wording clarifications. Let's see. There's really no substantive changes for the parking section, just wording clarifications. It was briefly contemplated to require parking at the side or rear of sites, but that was just not encouraged at this time. It's kind of a more restrictive design requirement that we didn't want to go there at this time. Omission of the street alignment language. There's no new streets to build. So that's was omitted, and then the points for the table altered accordingly, along with some more wording, grammatical corrections, clarification. It was mainly these charts were pretty difficult to comprehend, not very clear, so hopefully they're clear now. Tree retention, there's no trees left to retain, really, so that doesn't apply anymore. The amount of grass requirement, the way it read before, we really couldn't understand what it was getting at. And then we realized it's getting at 100% landscape coverage with no bark, we think is what it meant. And that's unrealistic. There's going to be some bark, there's going to be some dirt. So we just changed it to match what, there's another matrix for general design review. It talks about just encourage more plants and less grass. So that's that change, and grammatical clarifications below that. We contemplated adding some low-impact design standard stuff, but trying to figure out the point structure of that, and it might wind up being more restrictive to developers as we would try to figure it out. So no low-impact development proposed categories at this time. Page 220 is more type 2 language, adding the type 2 process. Page 220 and 221, in addition to a grammatical edit. 222 is grammatical. And that's all that is proposed.
So, Mr. Mayor? Yes, sir. The type 2 issue, 1649040, I'll confess that I'm not crazy about transferring decision-making power from from a resident committee of citizens to administrative staff in general. I understand the spirit behind it, trying to speed things up, but it's been pointed out, worst case, it's a 30-day delay. And I'm assuming that there's considerable due diligence for the planning director to do anyway, to assure compliance on an industrial. Todd shaking his head yes, that it's compliant anyway. And that should go on in parallel with the being scheduled on the PC docket. And I understand it's already in place for the downtown, but I'm picturing that the industrial projects, larger, more money, higher land value, more at stake, they're face changers, and it deserves a look by more eyes.
I'm of the same opinion.
Me too. We're not always going to have perhaps the same quality of planning director that we've got now. And that we have to make institutional decisions. And frankly, I think that Canby Industrial Park is lovely and ought to play a little hard to get. So I don't mind if we have some development standards where we have to make some of the where some suitors go away, are discouraged, because once they're here, and it is done. And once that's filled up, that's our legacy. And again, if we're going to give our poor transit director heartburn because we want to keep that integrous, then I think as well. So I'm not prepared to proceed with this at this time.
Okay.
I have to agree with that, too.
Again, that would be just something we could pull out.
We could remove all the type 2 language.
That way we don't have to revisit all these things you said again later, we just pull
Yeah,
those two
that
items.
might be something for you to consider, is that some of these grammatical changes to make it work a little better that we spent time on, we could just purge the text amendment of the proposed type 2 process and go forward with the rest. And I think we could still make some headway by doing that. I was going to comment real quick that this whole concept arose out of the visioning that the city held, and the economic development director having her own personal goals, and then responding to some requests in the visioning to find ways to promote economic development, to expedite development, et cetera, along those lines. And so we met and we discussed several different things, and this proposal for a type 2 process was one that seemed doable and one that could potentially promote it, albeit with only about a 30-day speed up in time, which, according to the economic development director, any amount of less time is a promotion. And so if she was here tonight, which I told her she probably didn't need to be here, that she very much was in favor of this, and this was her idea, and it was something that I could at least support in doing. I did expect that we would have more concern at the Planning Commission, but we did not. I'm not surprised at your concern at all.
Thanks, Brian.
And I think we can continue this discussion on ways to make Canby more economically attractive. But I also think that with what we're hearing about the upturn in the economy, the need for extraordinary incentives may be decreasing, and that we need to be careful not to give away more than we should. That maybe during the height of the recession, we had to put on a little more makeup and comb our hair, but I think we need to recognize that...
And now we can play hard to get.
Well, yes and no. I mean, that's true. But you're also competing with other cities for businesses who are expanding now because the economy is building, we're competing with Beaverton and Oregon City, so...
Do they have shovel-ready land that's
Good question. Don't
as
know.
lovely as
Yep.
ours?
Yeah.
It's worth a discussion.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to rush into a commitment.
Moving past the dating analogies, Brian, and you can please, tell Renata that I think I appreciate the heart in which we're working here, absolutely. If there's anything we can do to trim time or save dollars or make it less employees per acre, I mean, all those things play into being more attractive come date night. But at the same time, I think we've just got to be careful with,
It is getting late.
as we've said, what happens later down the road when things change and how quickly or how easy things get done and get missed and, that kind of thing. So I think we're being cautious, I think is the best way to look at that, so, okay. All right. Any other comments or questions?
I'm just curious, if we're going to delete that part out, we're still going to have how about the 12 employee per acre part? How are we handling that?
I think,
Consensus to pull that
I think so far, based on just right now with the staff report, we're looking at two things. One, leaving the 12 employees per acre piece alone until we have further conversation about that, and then taking out in section 16.49.040, omitting all the type 2 changes that were being recommended, and reverting it back to what we've had in terms of the text that's been in the, that's how I know.
And if council agrees, we have on the agenda to pass an ordinance amending the changes, but we can defer that and make the changes and then
That'd be good.
do the ordinance.
Does that type 2 also need to come out of 164935? Is that,
I think it'd be anywhere where they,
I think it would carry throughout the rest of the document.
Just the policy direction to get rid of it,
Okay.
and we'll take care of that. Bring back an ordinance that has it cleared out.
Thank you for catching that, Counselor.
Yeah, there's some other sections as well. I think what Angie's asking is just let us make the change, bring it back to us.
yeah, I like that.
Okay. Any other questions for staff before I open up the public testimony piece?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian and Angie. Thank you.
All right, so I will open up the public hearing for testimony. Anything further from the applicant, which is the city at this time? Okay, seeing none. Anybody in favor of the text amendment that want to speak? Okay. Anybody opposed? Miss Kathy Poole? Polly, pardon me, thank you. Thank you for hanging in there this evening.
Yeah, really.
yeah,
You're like an audience.
First of all, my name is Kathy Polly. My family purchased a good share of the industrial park land over the last 50 years. And at this point in time, I have inherited 2 lots, and I have jointly inherited with one brother 2 more lots. And I am a retired school teacher from Canby. I have lived in Canby long enough that Mayor Irwin was my brother's godfather. Wow. And I know a lot of those people up there. I originally wrote a letter that I was going to read tonight based on hearsay. I have not, my brother was extremely active in the industrial park, and you probably heard him here many, many times. You've heard me maybe once or twice. I have been very pleased tonight with what I heard, especially from Councilor Parker. And at this point in time, I do not wish to object to anything other than just to introduce myself, and also to, the one comment that I wrote down that I would like to share, though, is that what I have observed in the last 30 years, coming every once in a while to city council meetings, is that I have heard several times people running for office, people, committee members, commission members saying something to the effect of, well, I've lived here for 15 years now. I think I know the community really well. And when the comments were being made last year about 13th Avenue and Berg Parkway, a lot of the people in the room had been here for generations. Personally, my family has been here for 86 years. And I think it's really important for the council, the planning commission to do their, I don't want to say that I want you to, I don't want to be the person that says we've always done it this way. But what I do think is important is for you to look at the history of why things were done, and some of the background of it. I haven't always seen that happen really well, especially over 13th and Berg Parkway. I promise I would like very much to be informed when there's anything to do with the industrial park. I'd be happy to give you my email address. I promise not to dot my I's 7 times like my brother, or to be as volatile as my father, who had to be bleeped out of the Canby cable television. Although
It was an historic moment, though. You know.
well, it was, and I have to admit that when he lost $1 million sale to Milgard, he had a right to be upset.
Yes, he did.
So, anyhow, I do not object to anything.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
I appreciate the compliment. However, I still want you to keep an eye on me. I'm like a broken clock. I'm only right twice a day.
Oh.
So you stay tuned into this and make sure that we're on track.
Well, you know, like I said, I don't live inside the city limits, but
You're a property.
I have at one time, and I am a property owner, and I don't intend to go away.
Good.
So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy.
Appreciate it.
All right. Supposing there's no rebuttal from the city, I will close the public testimony. Any further questions or discussion at all?
Always put them in the paper, too.
Okay.
I don't, well, I need to know the webpage. Okay, thank you.
No, it's okay. No, I definitely, yeah, I want to get her in the loop there. Thank you. So moving into resolutions and ordinances, looks like ordinance A we will be carrying over to a later date. Okay. Ordinance B, 1403.
This is before you for second reading. This is authorizing a contract with Owen Equipment for the purchase of one 2014 Vector truck for the Canby Collections Department.
Thank you, Kim. And so just back history on this, this is a long overdue piece of equipment that our Public Works team has direly needed, and if we want to continue to have properly draining areas and pipes to be fixed and whatnot, is I think, a crucial piece of equipment. So I will take a motion to approve
Absolutely.
this.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve ordinance number 1403, an ordinance authorizing the mayor and city administrator to execute a contract with Owen Equipment of Portland, Oregon for the purchase of one 2014 Vector truck for the Canby Collections Department and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Great. Motion has been made by Councilor Hensley and seconded by Councilor Coleman to approve ordinance 1403, authorizing a contract with Owen Equipment for purchase of one 2014 Vector truck for the Canby Collections Department and declaring emergency with a roll call vote.
Counselor Rocha?
Aye.
Counselor Hensley?
Yes.
Counselor Coleman?
Aye.
Counselor Dale?
Aye.
Counselor Parker?
Yes.
And Counselor Ryder?
Yes.
Carries 6-0. Thank you very much. New business, so text amendment 14-01, findings, conclusion, and final order. Again, carrying that over till a later date. Any other additional city business news reports at this time?
No, Your Honor.
Bob, any citizen input tonight?
No, I'm afraid not.
All right.
You're saying, please let me go home, my pillow's calling, right? Is that what you're thinking about? You're thinking your pillow's calling you about now?
It has been.
Mine too.
So we'll go to action review then on that note.
You have approved annexation zone change 14-01. You've approved annexation zone change 14-02 with an amendment to a smaller park, and you've adopted ordinance 1403.
Great, thank you, Kim. Joe, exec session tonight?
Not tonight.
I will take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
It has been motioned by Councilor Hensley, second by Councilor Ryder to adjourn our meeting this evening. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone opposed? Great. Good night, Camby. Thank you very much.